I'm going to start off this conversation with a cut from the former Colorado governor, now one of the hundreds and hundreds of Democrat candidates, Hickenlooper. John Hickenlooper, is that his first name? Yeah, John Hickenlooper. He's asked on Face the Nation whether he's a socialist.
Once you get back into these labels, am I a capitalist? Am I a socialist? How much of a capitalist am I versus how much of a socialist? It becomes kind of silly, doesn't it?
Well,
I mean, in a funny way.
The other candidates were comfortable answering the question, so I wanted to offer you a chance to answer it. I understand you're not comfortable directly answering, but I want to move on to.
Well, I'm comfortable. I'm happy.
Go ahead.
I'm happy to say I'm a capitalist, but I think at a certain point, the labels do nothing but divide us.
You know, everything about that is untrue. Everything about this is untrue. The most important thing about this guy is what his ideas are, whether he's a capitalist or whether he's a socialist. It's not whether he cheats on his wife. It's not whether he curses on the air. It's not whether he's one day said something that he shouldn't have said. It's not any of that. It's what he's going to do in office. We're hiring him for a job. Now, of course, there's a level of corruption at which we can't trust him to be true to his ideas, a level of dishonesty and corruption, in which case the words coming out of his mouth don't mean anything. But up to that level, basically, what I want to know is he a capitalist or is he a socialist? What is he going to do when he gets in office? You know, I just saw this movie. I think I've talked about it before, The Front Runner, which is Hugh Jackman playing Gary Hart in the 1988 election. He was the front runner. He was this Democrat. He kind of had that Kennedy vibe going, and they caught him out having an affair with this lady, Donna Rice, a model named Donna Rice. And this is the moment when the press decided, yes, we can go after these guys on these personal things after years of protecting JFK, who was sleeping with anything in a skirt that moved. And then LBJ, as you heard Knowles tell you about after when we were talking about the front runner, LBJ said, you know, that's going to still be happening now that I'm president, and I hope you'll ignore it as you ignored it with Kennedy. And they did. And now they decided, no, this is the character issue, they called it. And in the movie, they say, well, who decided that this is now the news? And somebody says, the readers decided, our audience decided. That's crap. I was there. I was there when the corporate heads came into some of the bigger news places in New York where I was working. I was not a big guy there. I was a small guy in big places, but they were big places. And the corporate guys came in and said, we're covering sex now because nobody cares about the budget. We're covering condoms. We're covering sodomy because it was causing AIDS. And we can talk about it. Won't that be fun? And we're going to cover all this stuff instead of the work of the government. It was a decision they made. Yes, because they knew the people would go for it. But of course the people go for it. The people always go for the salacious hot story and don't care what the budget is. It was the news person's job. I mean, I just want to play this clip of Liz Cheney with Chuck Todd. It really an interesting clip because she starts out. I want to play the first clip first, if we've still got it. This is cut number 3. When Chuck Todd, you remember, I played a clip of his last week where he's defending Ilhan Omar. And again, once it's about the people, you start to defend the ideas. You say like, oh, you know, anti-Semitism, not so bad. I mean, I've heard nothing but these defenses of Ilhan Omar. Nancy Pelosi said, well, she didn't know what she was saying. What, is she a child? You know, of course she knows what she's saying. She does it again and again and again. And then when she apologizes, she says, well, I apologize for making evil Jews feel bad about being evil Jews. I mean, she's not really apologizing. Liz Cheney goes after Chuck Todd, and they start with this exchange. This is the first cut.
The Democrats have been in charge now for about 2.5 months in the House. And in that time, they've become the party of anti-Semitism, the party of infanticide, the party of socialism. They've passed legislation that's violated the First Amendment, the Second Amendment. It's really time for the Democrats, the leadership in that party, to stop it, to stand up and to act worthy, frankly, of the trust the American people have placed in them. It's crucial for the nation.
And now Todd does what he did last week, where he starts, well, it's both sides, the whataboutism. He calls his whataboutism, and Cheney shuts him down.
There was some concern by singling her out. You only make her a target, and they pointed to that West Virginia Republican Party flyer.
Chuck, I'm sorry, but
my point is we are getting.
You can describe it that way, Chuck. You can describe it that way, but you're wrong.
Way, though,
you can describe it that way, but you are wrong. When you have a situation in this country and around the world where we have seen a global rise in anti-Semitic attacks, when we have had the kinds of attacks that you had on the synagogue here in the United States recently, that is a moment when you absolutely
a motive on the right. That guy was motivated by right-wing fringe ideology.
Anti-Semitic.
Right.
Anti-Semitic, no matter where it comes from, is wrong. And when you're in a situation where you are an elected official, where we are in a situation where we have the history that we have, what happens when you don't stand up and say this is evil and call it what it is? We all have an obligation to do that. And I think it is absolutely shameful that Nancy Pelosi and Leader Hoyer and the Democratic leaders will not put her name in a resolution on the floor and condemn her remarks and remove her from the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
That is a battle of ideas. That is Liz Cheney winning a battle of ideas. I mean, he starts in with the ideas that whataboutism thing is just wrong. It's wrong when you're comparing a shooter, a schizophrenic, anti-Semitic nut job from the right, no question about it, a schizophrenic, anti-Semitic nut job to an American congresswoman. That is not a fair comparison. And she cuts him down, and she does it with ideas. Let's compare that to what is happening to Tucker Carlson. You know, Tucker Carlson must be one of the most effective spokespeople at Fox, because they have been trying to cut him down forever. Now, Tucker had, he's had a career where he started out as kind of a bad boy. So Media Matters goes out and they track down, what is the name of this guy? Bubba the Love Sponge or something like this. It finds this guy named who has a radio show named Bubba the Love Sponge. And have I got that right? Is that his name? Bubba? I think it is. Anyway, this is a guy who literally changed his name legally to Bubba the Love Sponge. It's true. He did. He had a Bubba the Love Sponge, whatever his last name is. And he has a show in Florida. And Tucker, 10 years ago, calls in and they have a little naughty boy talk. So Media Matters goes through 10 years of transcripts. And Media Matters is just a left-wing hit job, right? This is a hit site. That's all they do. And they go through this and they're looking for it because they don't want to argue with Tucker Carlson, because when you argue with Tucker Carlson, a lot of times you lose. So they don't want to do that, but they can find some naughty boy thing he said. And that's exactly what it is. It's naughty boy talk. He's talking about that Warren Jeffers, I think his name is. He was a cult leader. He was put in prison and he starts making fun of him. And then added to that clip is something he says. And let's play the clip of Tucker. Let's play what he says.
He's not accused of touching anybody. He is accused of facilitating a marriage between a 16-year-old girl and a 27-year-old man. That's the accusation. That's what they're calling felony rape.
But in our state,
that's bullshit. I'm sorry. Now, this guy may be a total creep, maybe a child rapist. I'm just telling you that arranging a marriage between a 16-year-old and a 27-year-old is not the same as pulling a stranger off the street and raping her. That's bullshit.
You know what, in my brief experience, what gets women going is arguing with them.
Really?
Yeah.
Brad, I never use that.
It's true. You debate politics with a woman and just go, just full blown out there, especially feminism. If you're talking to a feminist and she's giving you, men really need to be more sensitive and this, actually men don't need to be more sensitive. You just need to be quiet and kind of do what you're told.
And lighten up a little bit.
Love it.
So there's Tucker and Bubba being bad boys on the air, and Media Matters boy. They're outraged. You know that they wake up in the middle of the night and think, I am outraged. They don't wake up. They think, we can get this guy. We can get this guy. We can cause enough trouble where his sponsors retreat, where people go after him and make his life miserable. That's what they're doing. It is about the silence. By the way, Tucker Carlson's response, an adult response, he says, Media Matters caught me saying something naughty on a radio show more than a decade ago. Rather than express the usual ritual contrition, he says, how about this? I'm on television every weeknight live for an hour. If you want to know what I think, you can watch. Anyone who disagrees with my views is welcome to come on and explain why. That is grown-up talk. That's grown-up talk from Tucker Carlson, hitting back at this kind of childish thing. And I'm sorry, but I think that fundamentalist Christians or evangelical Christians have been guilty of doing this, of saying that we want our leaders to be saints. And then when they changed their tune, when they realized that Donald Trump was going to support religious freedom, which he has, more than the left did, they suddenly said, well, he's kind of like, King David, or like, Cyrus, the Persian, who helped us even though he wasn't a good person, who King David did a lot of bad things, but he was a great king. Cyrus sent us back, from the exile. So suddenly they came up with that idea instead of the idea they had in the Clinton era that we have to elect people who don't cheat on their wives. The thing is, when they changed their minds, they were right. When they changed their minds, they were in the right. And that's why I disagree with David. That's why I disagree with David French. I think that the concentration on people's characters past the point where their corruption makes their word, where you can't believe that they're going to hold on to their ideas. You can't believe that they're going to act in the way they say they're going to act. Up until that point, I just don't care. I just don't care. I do not care that they're cheating on their wives. I think it's a bad thing to do. Anybody who knows me knows that I think that cheating on your wife is one of the lousy things that you can do. I think it's lousy to your wife. I think it's lousy to your children. I think it's lousy for your soul. I think it will ruin your life. I've told this to my friends face to face. But these guys aren't my friends. These guys are hired to do a job. And if they're doing a good job, they're doing a good job. And this is why I think this kind of talk simply puts us in a silly battle about nothingness, about who can catch Tucker Carlson out with Bubba the Love Sponge. You know, I want to say this is about silencing Fox News, the one and only right-wing outlet on mainstream media. I mean, there are plenty of us here on the internet, but not that many. Like in cable news, it's the one voice that's saying what it's saying. And all they want to do, the Democrats want to bar it from hosting debates. They want to make sure it's silenced. In the Washington Post, where democracy dies and trying to shut down the opposition, they're running editorials about it.